Hey, what's up, everybody? David Burns here with you. Thanks so much for joining me today for my live stream. And that's a beautiful scene to start with, isn't it? All those beautiful bees flying around. Gosh, that's so cool. I loved making that video, watching those bees fly and gather up that pollen. And I've made some recent videos about that, bees going out and getting pollen, and been looking at some hives, seeing what they're doing. And I know a lot of you have probably seen bees going out and getting pollen off different plants, bringing them in, depending on where you live. Really good to look at. But it's rainy, been raining here the last few days. Not very nice for bees. They've not been doing a whole lot. So I want to thank all of you guys for joining me today. We've got a great live stream planned today. I've actually got 3 giveaways of online beekeeping courses that we're going to give away. I think we're going to give them away about every 15 or 20 minutes. We'll run a giveaway. So I'll let you know when that's coming up. And so what I want to do today is talk a little bit more about queen rearing. I'm really pumped and excited about all of you that are on my channel. Many of you have told me that you're really getting excited about doing more queen rearing or doing it for the first time. I think that's pretty cool. I can think back when I first started raising queens, and I didn't really have any more information than kind of a new beginner when I started. I've been keeping bees a while, but learning to raise queens, it seemed something that was mysterious and hard to wrap my head around at first. But I assure you, once you kind of study it, once you understand bee biology, it's pretty simple. Bees follow a pretty common pathway of raising their own queens. So all we try to do is just do what they do, only in our equipment. I want to give a shout out to Black Dog Apiary for your $50 donation. A lot of you know that you can leave a super chat, a super thanks, and I appreciate that so much when you do that. It goes a long way. And so what I want to do today is start off this live stream with a video clip from my online queen rearing course about grafting. So if you're wondering about grafting, like how hard is that? How difficult is it? What is grafting all about? I'm going to show you about a 6 or 7 minute clip from my online course about raising queens. And I think this is going to be cool. I think you're going to be able to wrap your mind around it. And so what I want you to do is watch this video and let me know if the sound isn't working or something, but it should be fine. And then after we show the video, we can have some questions about grafting, because I know a lot of you are going to be wondering once you see this. It's pretty overwhelming. Let's jump right into it.
The stage, you can see egg, you can see the one in the middle, and you can see the one just off to your right. Obviously, we can't graft an egg. The one in the middle is perfect, and the one to the right is way too old. It's about a 5 to 8 day old larva ready to be capped over and pupate. So the one in the middle is swimming in royal jelly. You can see it's shaped like the letter C. This is very small. You're going to be overwhelmed. When I teach these classes, my students are overwhelmed how small that larva is. So just be prepared. You're going to need good glasses, okay? I'm telling you that in advance so you can go out and make sure you can see up close really well. Some of you may be up in age, and you may have little shaky hands, or maybe you don't feel like you have the hand coordinations that it's going to require to graft. But you can. You just have to find a way to brace your hand against your table, or put your arm on a box or something. You can stabilize it. I've seen this many times where people had shaky hands and they were able to brace themselves. So don't be intimidated by this kind of work. You can do it. In this image here, the larva is shaped like the letter C. The open side is to the left, and the closed part of the C, of course, is to the right by the blue arrow. Now for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my tool on the closed part of the C. Where the arrow is, that's where my tool is going to go. And the way it's going to work is, right where that blue arrow is pointing, the tip of my Chinese grafting tool actually goes and touches that royal jelly off to the right side there. Between the royal jelly and the blue arrow is where the tip of my Chinese grafting tool will go, and then when it hits the bottom of the cell, it will curve, it will bend, and go underneath the royal jelly and that larva. And at that point, you simply pull up. You don't have to push any buttons on your Chinese tool at this time. You're just pulling them out, and you pull up on it, and it's on the tip of your Chinese grafting tool. And if you do it really carefully, you don't really actually touch the larva. It actually is just touching the royal jelly that surrounds the larva. And once you get it on your Chinese grafting tool, or whatever tool you're using, you simply lower the tip of your tool to where it bends, and it makes the larva sits flat on the queen cup, on the bottom of that plastic cup. You just begin to slowly push the tip of your Chinese grafting tool on the top, that little button there. Push it, which slides the plunger, which will push that larva off onto the base of that cell cup. And be careful not to flip the larva over. At this point, she's only breathing on the spiracles on the top side. If you flip her over, I don't believe she'll be able to breathe, and she'll suffocate. So that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt to change the orientation, which way they're facing. Just don't flip them upside down when you set them back in. Some questions come into play about priming queen cups. Is that necessary? No. Bees know what to do. Some people will graft and place royal jelly in the cups ahead of the grafts, but studies have shown that that really doesn't make that much difference. So we just do what's called dry drafting. And again, keep them covered with a damp cloth as you continue to make these grafts. So if you kind of watch how I handle it here, you'll see me, if I was doing a live grafting here off of this frame, I'm simply going to look, and I'm going to find the graft that I want. I'm going to orientate this part, the plunger side, facing up, because I want to scoop it up so that when I push the plunger button down, I can watch it come off. So I get the white part of the plunger facing up toward me. I'm going to look around until I find one. There's a good one, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to go in. Sometimes you may want to put a little bit of a curve, a little bit of a bend on the tip of your grafting tool like this. If you can make it just bend ever so slightly on the tip. I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not, but you can bend it a little bit so that when you go in, it goes under the royal jelly. So you kind of come in, I like a little more bend than that. You kind of come in and stay on the side of the cell wall, let it go under, oh, that's perfect, and scoop up that royal jelly. And then you pull it straight up like this, and then you come out to your first cup over here, and you get ready, put your finger right here on top of the button, lower it down until this real flexible material on the tip is sitting on the base of the cell. And now push the button down as you pull up like that. Very, very easy to do, but it does take some time. Again, you do 1, 2, 3, 4, and at that point, after doing 4, cover those 4 up with a wet cloth like this, and then you can continue on grafting number 5 the same way until you get these 4, and then pull your cloth over more, and that way these stay really moist. Now what you want to do is continue on grafting like this until all cups are filled, and then you can move them gently. The larva will not fall out, don't worry about that. And now you're just going to go out to your starter hive. As you can see here, this little hive that I've made up, it's ready to roll. And look at those beautiful grafts and cell cups that are in there. It looks like a really good number. And you just place them right in the middle. And all these nurse bees, along with the food that they have on these other frames, they're going to start feeding these cups. Now in this case, the queenlessness of this starter hive, along with all the nurse bees observing these vertical hanging larvae in these cups of royal jelly, it will force them. They will know what to do, believe it or not. They will begin to give more royal jelly to these cups, and they will begin to elongate these cups with extra wax, as you can see here. Now, the picture on the right is after 24 hours after we've gone back and pulled them out, and you can see they're working them, they're adding wax to these little cups. It's exactly what you want to see. They've added royal jelly, they're starting to build the wax queen cups in addition to the plastic on them. And that's how it works.
Okay, I know that's a lot to think about, and it seems like so simple when I look at it and I watch that video. It's like, oh wow, yeah. And I was watching the grafting video that Dr. John Zavishlak and me put that video together. We actually cut some of those plastic cups in half and actually did the grafting. And you notice in some of those, we actually just had the larva on the tip of the Chinese grafting tool, and we just let it touch the bottom of the cell. And once it touched, then it was just dropping itself off. We didn't have to use the plunger. And I appreciate that super chat there of 1999. Grammy Midwife Suburban, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Glad you enjoyed the grafting videos there. But sometimes you do have to use the tip of the top of the Chinese grafting tool and push on it to allow the larva to slide off of the tip of that tool. And it's not the end of the world if you touch the larva, because usually there's enough royal jelly surrounding it. But a lot of times we just don't have to touch it. We just simply let it touch the bottom of the cell of that little cup, and then it just sticks to it and it stays there with all of the royal jelly. And I don't remember if I mentioned that. I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier in that video, but sometimes we wonder about how much royal jelly should be around that larva that we're grafting. And always the more royal jelly that is around that graft, the better it's going to be. And so what I do many times, I'll go out to that prize winning hive that I want to graft out of, and I will just feed them crazy amount of sugar water, 1-to-1, even if they're foraging, whatever. I'm making sure they have a bunch of food in there, because a lot of times the more I feed them, then the nurse bees are able to make more royal jelly, and it makes those larvae, the one-day-old larvae that I want to graft, it makes them float in more royal jelly. And the more royal jelly that larva is floating in that you're going to graft, it's easier to scoop under it when there's a lot of royal jelly. If the grafts are kind of dry, just a little bit of royal jelly, it's harder to allow the tip of your tool to go under it and pick that up. The reason we bend it a little bit is because a lot of times the base of your frame where the larva is sitting at can be really sticky. And as soon as if it's too straight, then the tip of that tool just jabs into the bottom of the wax on the base of that cell. So a lot of times what I do is I bend it, I put a curve on it already, just a little bit, and it kind of coaches the tip of that to go, when it hits the bottom, it just coaches it to go under the royal jelly. And even sometimes I dip a little water in it, or maybe I'll even put it in my mouth to get a little bit wet before I do the grafting. And so that works out really well. And I think that being seen by you guys might make you think, oh, wow, I can do this. Or it might make you think I could never do that. And a lot of times when I actually have on-site queen rearing courses, everybody is really pumped and excited until I go out and I bring in a frame of one-day-old larvae, and they look at it and they can't hardly even see it. I mean, seriously, if you're looking at it, it's about the size of a comma on a printed page of like 11 font size. It's just a comma. It's what you're looking at. The smaller it is, the better it is. The smaller graft that you can actually make, capture or pick up, the smaller larva that you can pick up, it's going to make a better queen, because it's the youngest. If you wait too much longer, if you wait and pick up a 2-day-old larva, it's not going to be as good of a queen. So you got to really go to one that is just barely starting to form into a little C shape on the bottom. You know, you can't graft eggs, they're too sticky. No need to even try. So you want to wait just when they start into that larva stage and graft them. So I think it's cool. It's a lot of fun. And John and I wrote this book, and some of you have seen it. I had it at Hive Life, and it's about raising quality queens. This book, if you research it online, I think it's the University of Arkansas, you can download it for free. And it has a lot of the things about raising queens all mapped out really easily here. So think about downloading this. We do sell them at our website for basically the cost of printing and shipping it to you, like $15, because we did have this printed in full color. So it did cost us a little bit, but you can download it for free and actually use it as a guide. Thank you, Charlie. I see you a lot in the YouTube comments. Thank you for your $19.99 donation. I appreciate that. Sometimes when I'm watching live chats, live streaming like this, I'll try to leave a donation like that. And I don't know why I can't do it. I've got to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I click on it and then it rejects. My credit card company calls me. They say, hey, you can't do that. You're on Google or something. I don't know what's going on, but I got to figure it out. Some of you guys have figured out how to leave those gifts for me. And that does go a long way. And I do appreciate it a lot. Okay, is it worth, oh, I saw that question just for a minute. Is it worth making your own queens with just 1 or 2 hives? Absolutely, it is. It's worth always making your own queens. I have found that to be so enjoyable. And learning the art and the skill of raising your own queen, it empowers you as a beekeeper to feel like and to know that you're not subject to having to get a queen from somebody else, having to wait, having to have it shipped to you. And then, you know, is everything going to go well? You can do it on your own time. You can raise the kind of queens that you want from the hives that are successful. And yeah, you can do it with 1 hive. A lot of times you can use what's called a cloak board method with 1 hive, kind of rotate it out and rotate the boxes and raise queens that way. Or you can just get 1 hive and then a 5-frame a starter nuke, and that starting nuke, you can actually just use it to help start those grafts that you want. So you can do that. If you want to do a nuke, to raise a queen, then you use the queen. Do you try to raise another one in the nuke or use the resources in a different hive? Let me explain it. Not exactly sure, but so when I have a starter nuke that I'm using for one hive and a starter nuke, what I'll do is I'll use the starter nuke to start my grafts that I just showed how to do it. Once after 24 hours, I move them over to a finishing hive. That means that this starter nuke, it's still there full of nurse bees. Nurse bees are able to make royal jelly to feed new grafts from 6 to 12 days old. So they've only been 24 hours. I've got a lot of days left in these nurse bees. If I want to, I can put more grafts in there and let them start an additional 20, 30, 60 grafts again. Let them start it and move those to another finishing hive. But if I don't want to, if I just want to do something different with that 5-frame nucleus that I have, I may move my grafts out, but leave one of them in there and let them raise 1 or 2. Usually it's better to leave 2 in case one dies. Leave 2 in there in that starter nuke and just let that become a support nuke for something. You can just let it be a 5-frame nucleus. You're going to need a mating nucleus once the bees, the queens in your finishing hive have matured to about day 13. You don't want them to emerge together. They'll kill each other. So your grafts, or at this time, your queen cells have to be moved out and placed in queenless places. They have to go into mating nukes somewhere. They have to go into a queenless colony. So a lot of times you might not have the equipment that you need. So you might just save your starter nucleus that you started with and let that become your mating nuke. Put a cell in there and do it that way. Another way that I tell a lot of my people is that, and that's what I was going to say next, Dale. Thanks for that question. Can I use starter nuke for a finishing hive? A lot of times people say, I just want to raise a handful of queens for myself. And in that case, I say, don't bother with a finishing hive. That starter hive, if you get enough nurse bees in there and you put maybe 10 grafts in there, they're going to be able to raise all of those 10 grafts. Certainly they'll raise 5 very easily because they have enough royal jelly, enough power to do that. So you can just raise a handful of queens for yourself by letting that starter nuke be the finishing hive as well. They'll do it. The only reason we do starter finisher is because a lot of times we're raising 40 to 60 queens on one frame, 3 cell bar frames. And so that number of nurse bees can't finish that many of them. We have to put them in a gigantic big hive so they can raise 60 queens at once. But if you're doing small numbers, certainly that small number is going to work really good for you. So don't feel like you have to put them in a finishing hive if you just want to do a very small number. And by the way, the finishing hive is nothing more than just your typical 2 deep body hive. And you put a queen excluder between the 2 deeps. You put the queen in the bottom deep below the queen excluder. And that way you put your grafts in the top. When you want to finish them after 24 hours, you move them over there. And when the finishing hive sees that that somebody, they don't know who, but somebody started them, they'll finish them. Isn't that weird? Because if you try to start the grafts in the finishing hive, they wouldn't do it, because they would see them hanging there and they would say, hey, we got pheromones from mama. I don't know what's going on up there, but we're not starting any queens. We don't need queens. The starter hive is queenless. They don't have a queen. So they start it, but they don't have enough energy or size or numbers to finish it. But when you put them over in the finishing hive, that hive, even though there's pheromones of the queen floating around, it seems like they're just able to look at those hanging upside down queen cups, and they say to themselves, well, I don't know who started this. I guess I don't know what's going on, but it's our job to finish them out. So starter finisher. It's just kind of neat how that works. A lot of different ways to do this, but it works really well. Okay, here's a question. Hey, David, when you make mating nukes for mating queens, do you suggest a mini mating nuke or a normal 5 frame for mating? What are your thoughts on mating nukes in general? You know what? It really depends on your flavor. Grayson, good to see you, by the way. But I really think it depends on your flavor. I've tried it all, and it all has pros and cons to it. I don't think it matters. One of the things I learned early on, though, if I can keep all of my frames, all my boxes, all the same, I kind of don't have to mix and match. I went small for a long time, just a little bitty mating box nukes that were like made out of styrofoam with tiny little frames, but they just expanded too fast for me. They got too big, they got too populated, and it was a little hard to do. So I like using a 5 frame mating nuke for me. And that way I have deep frames in them. And that way all my frames that I transfer around from my deep boxes, from my mating nucleus, from my everything, starter hives, they're all going to be 5 frame mating nucleuses for me. There's just so many uses for that box that I just prefer to keep that 5 frame nucleus to be the box of choice for me. When making your cell builder, how much time in advance of grafting are you making it? Very good question. Very good. A lot of times we think that 5 frames that you pull out of a queen right hive, how long does it take them to know they're queenless? That's kind of the magic number before you want to put your grafts in there. And most of us probably would say 2 hours. That little small amount of bees, 5 frames, in 2 hours, they're going to know they're queenless. And so that's the goal of mine. I don't try to do it earlier than 2 hours, but you can certainly wait longer if you want to. But 2 to 4 hours is plenty of time to wait to drop those grafts in there, and it works out really well. When you make that cell starter, then you want to make sure that you don't have any other brood in there. That's really important. You don't want them feeding any other larvae in that colony at all, that little starter hive. You don't want them feeding. You want all the royal jelly to go to your grafts. And you don't want them to have an option to raise anything else except what you grafted. And so that's why you brush in nurse bees. Make sure you're putting in that starter box, you're putting in a couple of frames of honey, 1 of pollen, and then 1 that's empty comb that they can kind of sit on. One thing that I do as well is I put a lot of moisture in there. Like I'll put sponges on the side, because I'm usually doing this in May and June, and they need a little bit of water. I don't let them fly. I usually have the front of the starter nucleus screened off. Here's another question. So is it not a good idea to pull nurse bees from a starter nuke from the hive you plan to harvest larvae from? No, it doesn't matter. I found that it doesn't matter at all to me. Just pulling my nurse bees. I usually have to go to 3 or 4 hives sometimes to get the nurse bees that I want, because I don't want to steal all the nurse bees from one hive. But you could take nurse bees from any hive, even the hive that has the larvae that you want to graft. Hey, let's keep the questions coming, but let's try to do a giveaway of a online basic beginner course. Let me see if I can figure this out. I think we have awesome classes that are available online, and so many of you have enjoyed them so much. I want you to do this. I want you to leave in the comments the hashtag and then the word class. Hashtag class. And that lets our system know that you want to be entered into the drawing to win the online basic beekeeping course. And just leave hashtag class in there, and we'll give that a minute to run, and then we'll do a drawing to see which one of you may win my basic beginner online course. I want to tell you guys that I deal with a lot of new beginners, and a lot of times beginners don't always understand beekeeping to the basic fundamental facts of beekeeping. For example, and I know this person could be watching. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone at all, but I just want to bring this up because it's kind of interesting what we forget that we didn't know when we first started. But somebody sent me a picture, and they were telling me that one of my feeding systems may not fit on their particular boxes. And they said they had a 9-frame box, 9-frame box, 9-frame deep box. Well, immediately I thought, 9 frames. Can you send me a picture of that? Well, guess what? The picture showed all 9 frames that were really packed into an 8-frame box. Wow. I mean, you couldn't even get, if the bees got in there and started propolizing that together, you couldn't even pull out 1 frame, right? So all boxes, whether they're 8-frame or 10 frames, they have to have enough room for you to put your fingers along the walls so that there's space there. You can push them all into the middle. That's how you get your 8 frames or your 10 frames pushed together in the middle. And that space along the wall is for air, for manipulation of frames a little bit. Somebody made an 8-frame box wide enough in the inside that you could force the 9-frame in. So if you're a new beginner, look, I've never heard of a 9-frame box. Maybe they make them somewhere. I don't know. But I immediately knew, like, 9 frames. And then I saw how close they were packed in there. It was like, wow. All right. Everybody's had a chance to put in hashtag class to win the online basic beginners class. Let me see if we can do a little manipulation here of some drawings. Give me a minute here to figure this out. All right. I'm going to make that bigger so you can see it better. Well, that's not big enough. Let's see. Can you see that okay? All right. So let's start collecting comments. Here we go. We got 33 comments, and let's go ahead and draw. Anybody wants to get last? Oh, there's another one. Number 34 barely made it. Hashtag class to win my online beekeeping course. I'm fixing to say draw. Here we go. Who is going to win? Wow, Wildwoods Honeybee Farms, you are the winner. Congratulations, Grayson. Awesome job there. All right. And what you need to do is email longlanehoneybees@gmail.com. You're the winner, and my staff will get that class sent right out to you. That'd be a lot of fun for you. So I appreciate that. Good job. All right. Any other comments or questions you want to ask me? When during the season can you graft queens? You can actually plan that out by looking at your drones. A lot of people will study drones, and as soon as your hive starts having drones and you realize when those drones are mature enough to mate with your queens that you're raising, a lot of times people will pull the trigger by just kind of backdating and understanding, okay, that's when the drones need to come out. And so I think a lot of times I don't really go that way. I like to tend to say when my bees are raising or wanting to raise their own queens, like in the spring, usually for me, when they start wanting to swarm, I know I can always raise queens because they're ready to raise queens. You got to have a good nectar flow. You got to have drones. And something that I looked at, listen to this, guys. I think you'll be interested in this. Drones, they mate with virgin queens in drone congregation areas about 1.5 miles away from the colony where the queen's from. The queen will fly out of that. She'll fly to a drone congregation area. In those drone congregation area, there are roughly 1,000 to 2,000 drones hanging out, waiting for virgin queens to fly in so they can mate with them. Now, a drone, this is interesting, but a drone becomes mature, sexually mature and starts taking mating flights on about day 10 to day 14. So they start, like a worker bee starts flying on day 22. Well, the drones start flying about day 10, day 14. Drones actually take cleansing flights on day 6, 7, and 8. They fly out, fly around the hive, and then go back in. But around day 10 or 14, they start taking mating flights. They go to these big drone congregation areas. The interesting thing is they take 3 to 6 mating flights a day. They don't have a large honey crop where they carry the nectar, the energy they need. So they have to refuel. They can't stay out there all day long. They have to come back, refuel, go back out there. Like a helicopter, they just run out of gas and got to refuel. But they take 3 to 5 mating flights where they go to the drone congregation area and hang out. And they're gone about 25 minutes, and then they'll refuel. And we believe that they can refuel anywhere. They can go to any hive, fly and land there. They may not have to go all the way back to their hive, but there's one closer. But they take about a 25-minute time out there. But here's a real interesting thing is that drones, from the time the egg is laid, they are very fertile between 38 and 44 days after the egg is laid. Now, 38 is the magic number. 38 days old from when the egg was laid is when the drone is the most able to go out there and mate. On day 44 and older, these drones their sperm is reduced. And so as they get older, they're not going to be as good as going out and mating with virgin queens. So it makes you wonder sometimes, a lot of people blame poor queens, all this. You wonder sometimes about, are these older drones going out and mating and they just don't have the good sperm count that they need to successfully mate? But keep in mind that these mating flights that these virgin queens are going on, they're actually mating with 20, 30, 40 drones. So the chances of them having older drones or less fertile drones is going to be pretty rare. That's why the queen mates with so many drones. And I think that's really important to have a lot of drones that mate with the virgin queen. We need to have a lot of variety of stock, I guess, in that that's in the drones. Here's another question. Is there a way to find a DCA? Just curious. Oh, I would love to find a DCA. I would have so much fun. I would never come home. I would get my cameras. I would get my drone. I would fly up into it with my drone. I would take pictures. I love it. I love the whole idea. I remember somebody from University of Illinois spent like one summer just walking through cornfields trying to look for DCAs. Never found one, but people find them. You can see them, but gosh, I'd love to find one. I don't know. I don't know how to find one. How long can you practically bank your queens? This is a good discussion too. Unfortunately, some people bank queens a long time. We would be probably astonished at how long some of the big, people that raise queens are banking them. Personally, I've seen queens in cold rooms that have been in there banked for a long time. I don't think it's a good idea to bank them any longer than is essential. So I think banking them is something you want to do if you're in a pinch and maybe you don't have a place to put them, and you can bank them and put them on top. Sometimes you can put them in supers, like maybe you have 2 deeps in a super, you can bank them up in that super, queen excluder, keep the queen out of there. Or you can bank them in the top deep. I've done that, but I don't like to bank them too long. They can start failing if you have them in there very long. That's just going to be a coin toss. It's always different too. Sometimes I can bank them 2 weeks and they're great. Other times I can bank them for, 5 days and I start seeing some on the edges failing. Canadian Beekeepers blog. Hey, Ian, good to see you. Yeah, I was happy to meet Ian. Good to meet you at Hive Life too. Always awesome. Ian's a great fellow. Yep. How far will a queen travel to find a DCA concerned diamond in area limited apiary coverage? Now, I can only say what people have told me. I've never really looked at the odometer of a queen when she got back. There is some literature that suggests she will try to fly further than her own colony, fly further away than her brothers. And so that might be 1.5 miles is what I've heard, that she'll fly pretty far away. But I've heard different reports too. Someone tried to correct me once and said the virgin queen doesn't try to get away from her brothers. She tries to get away from her sons. And I said, no, a virgin queen doesn't have sons because she's a virgin. She's just trying to get away from her brothers. So the idea, I guess, we think the queen's trying to get further away, from her own brothers so that there won't be any inbreeding. And that's kind of what we think. Yep. Do you have any other questions on queens or grafting? I am or anything. Let's throw up any questions at all you want to share it with me. I started with the NICOT system. That's what I started with. And it was a lot of little pieces, and it worked, but it didn't work very well for me. And those pieces were hard, and it was pretty expensive. I bought the whole system and it didn't come with any instructions at all. And I was pretty frustrated. And I called the bee company. I won't mention their name. And they were like, well, contact the people that make it. And the people that made it said, yeah, we don't have any information. I was going by the seat of my pants. It might be better now, but I like being able to control it more. The only thing it allowed me to do is not have to graft, because I could put the queen on top of little cups and she would lay in those, and then I would time it out and pull them out at the right time. So for me, it was just actually alleviating me having to graft. And I like grafting. I love grafting. It's a hoot. But if you just don't want to graft and you want to spend hundreds of dollars on the system, you might as well get it and see if it's for you. But first, eliminate that you can't do any grafting yet. Hey, Tom, how are you? Good to see Tom. Tom is a big encourager from B Team 6. I always appreciate hearing from Tom. What are your thoughts on incubators? I love incubators. I use so many incubators. Let me tell you about 2 incubators that I use. Number one, and thanks, Tom, for the $20 super thanks or super chat there. I appreciate it. My first choice of the incubator is the chicken egg incubator that you can buy at farm stores. The thing is pretty darn cheap, with a fan, without a fan. That's my go-to. And I've got wooden slats that I built to hold my California mini cages in there. And my cell protectors go inside of those, or I drill them out so my cells can go in, so I don't get one queen running in the whole incubator. Maybe I'll show that, but it is in my queen rearing course. It shows how to do that. Then another way that I do it is you go to Sam's Club and you buy these apartment refrigerators, these dorm refrigerators. They kind of hold Cokes or something. They're not real big. They're maybe 3 feet. They're not very wide. Little refrigerators with a glass door on it. And what I do is I don't plug them in, but I put a light bulb in there with a thermometer, with humidity, and then I can put my grafts in there. I got to keep my grafts about 92, 93, the incubator, that temperature, with about 50% humidity. And then I use that whole refrigerator, and I have it on a thermostat. I use the guts out of the chicken egg incubator inside the refrigerator And that way, the heating element controls the temperature for me that the light bulb produces. So it's pretty cool. I didn't want to void the warranty. So in the bottom of the refrigerator, they have a little hole that water drips out. So I just ran the wiring up to that little hole. I didn't drill any holes or anything. As a first timer, if I'm aiming for keeping 7 queens, how many would you recommend I graft? Oh, well, you're probably, it depends. Some people graft the first time and they'll have 100% success. The first time I taught John Zavishlak how to graft, I think he was in the 90s. Most people can't reach 50% on their first attempts. It's more likely you're going to have way low numbers of success, because most of the time people that graft for the first time, they graft very too old larvae, because you can't hardly see the 1-day-old larva, so they'll graft a 6-day-old larva. They're not going to make a queen out of that. Or they'll damage the larva by flipping her over, damaging her. I'm telling you, I've trained so many people to graft, and you would not believe the annihilation that takes place in my hives and on these grafts when people are learning how to do it. They scrape them against the wall. Some people will try to graft a 1-day-old larva. They'll drag it against the wall, but they're determined to get it. I mean, once she's stuck to the wall, leave it, go on, graft something else. If you can't get a clean graft, then just give up and start over. But I would say at least you probably would want to get, if you want 7 to 10, gosh, thanks, Michael. If you want 7 to 10 grafts, why don't you try grafting 20? Because out of 20, you're probably going to get a good 5 that are going to be good for you. Yeah. It does take experience. How do you get the colony to produce good royal jelly for the queens? Yeah, Jerome, I think the best way to do it, you got to have a strong colony that's got a lot of nurse bees and you're feeding it really well. You're going to give it a lot of food. It should have good food in the month that they would naturally swarm from nectar, from flowers. That's going to be your best bet. But I go ahead and feed them sometimes 3 days before I start pulling the grafts out. And I'll just go to my prize winning hive that I love, that I want to raise queens from. And I'll look for eggs, and I'll make sure there's, eggs, because on that frame, there'll be 1-day-old larvae somewhere in addition to the eggs on there. And that's when I'll pull that frame out and bring it in. Now, let me tell you this. Humidity is your friend. Dryness is your enemy when it comes to raising queens. You have to work in a very humid, wet environment. Do not pull your grafts that you want to pull your frame up with your grafts on it and take it into an air-conditioned room. You're going to kill those grafts. They have to be, all the raw jelly is going to evaporate out in no time at all. Take wet rags, wet paper towels, shop rags. You pull that frame out. You put it in a cooler with some wet rags on it. At your graft station, you put wet rags under it when you lay it on the table, and you keep wet rags over it, over the parts you're not grafting out of. You put wet rags over your grafts. You got to keep everything moist. It's so important. If you make homemade, Gary, if you make homemade queen cups from wax and place them on a frame in hive, would the queen lay in them on her own? That's a good question. If there was let's see, if you make homemade queen cups out of wax and place on a frame in a hive, would the queen lay in them on her own? No, I don't think so. She's not going to lay in anything except probably what she sees in the brood area. She might lay in them if she needed, if they were replacing her or something. We don't think bees move eggs around, so we feel like it's the queen laying in swarm cells or supersedure cells, or else they take the eggs that are already there and build them out. We don't really think that they move them in there, so I don't think she would. No, I doubt it. Just don't think so. Where do we buy the grafting tools? Oh, you just go to all your big places, Daydamp, Man Lake, your big bees. Here's a funny story, though. I'm going to leave the name out because I don't want to embarrass her. I never want to talk. I've made a commitment never to talk negative about any beekeeper, YouTuber, or beekeeping supply store. But I used to get beautiful Chinese grafting tools. They were almost like handmade, beautiful. The tip was excellent. Plungers were great. Boom, right? Then I started getting these cheap ones that were just all plastic. The plunger wasn't wood, it was plastic. I called the company up and I said, I don't like this new style. It's too cheap. It doesn't work. I can't graft with it. Boy, they were not kind to me. They didn't know who I was, but they were just like, well, you don't like it? Hey, don't buy it from us. That was their attitude. And I was just wanting to give some feedback. Like, we're using these for a real important purpose. We've been getting really good ones. And now we're getting these very inexpensive, cheap ones that are falling apart when I use them and they don't work well. So, you just have to I've bought a lot of them until I find some good ones. Why should I raise queens? I just have a few hives and not much plans to expand beyond that. Well, even if you just have a few hives, there may come a day when your hives fail to raise a queen. Now, this isn't how it's supposed to happen, but all of us as beekeepers know, wow, this hive is queenless. This hive is still queenless. Oh my gosh, they're not raising ones. Here's the deal. A queen can go out on a mating flight. She can get eaten by a dragonfly, a bird. She can get lost, fly back into another colony, the wrong colony. And at that point, there's no eggs. They can't raise anymore. So once the colony that you have goes queenless and they make these queen cups to replace the queen that died or something, or you accidentally killed, once they replace her, the eggs, after 3 days, the eggs can't be grafted. And so now there's no way ever for them to raise a queen if those queens fail. And that's where, if you have a backup, if you've already raised some, if you've got some sitting in a nucleus somewhere, you can pull your own queens that you raise for supporting your own colonies. Yeah, having those queens is so handy. Wow. I may have missed it, but I live an hour east of you. When would you suggest starting grafting? I would say you're probably, weather can be different every year. I would say probably around May 1st, Mother's Day, you're going to be real safe. I think that's going to really work out well. But you could probably jump early if it warms up earlier, I'm sure. What happens if you raise queens for your own apiary, but you have made a colony with this queen and you now need her for another hive? Where do the supplemental colony of bees go? Let me read that again. Don't understand the question, really. It sounds like you might need to use that queen somewhere else and you take her out of that colony. Where do you put the supplemental colony of bees go? You could just put the supplemental bees into another hive, or you could use that, let them raise their own queen. If you need to remove that queen and use her somewhere else, then let them raise their own queen from eggs she just laid. It would take 30 days to do it, but certainly you could do that. Yeah. I think it's time for another giveaway. Let's do it again. All right, hang on. Let me get things primed up here. This time we're going to do the Ultimate Beekeeping Course, all 7 of them. Oh, I don't want to do that. It's too hard to spell. Let's just do class again. So we're going to give away the Ultimate Beekeeping Course, the online Ultimate Course. It has 7 of my courses all bundled in one. So let's choose a different one. Let's say, I don't want it to be the same one. Hashtag ULTA, ULTA, okay? Not class, ULTA, hashtag ULTA for that. Let's start collecting some comments. All right, hashtag ULTA, yep, there you go. And you will select somebody who wins the Ultimate Beekeeping Course. Did I see a question go by? I missed it. ULTA, I got 81 entries. Wow, that's a lot. All right, we're going to be wrapping it up here in a few more minutes. We got this class and one more to give away, so we'll have to speed up our giveaways. 111 people have typed hashtag Ulta. 122. Thank you, guys. A lot of people have taken that Ultimate course. I can't off the top of my head, probably say all 7 of them, but it comes with the beginners, an advanced course. It comes with queen rearing course from videos that you just saw today, how to get your bees through the winter, mite control, spring management. Gosh, there's one more. I can't remember. A day in the apiary with David. But it's just a lot. It's a lot bundled up. 133. Leave a comment, hashtag ULTA, and then we'll draw a winner of who is going to win the ultimate course today. 140. So get that in there right away. You could win that. That was exciting. I had a drawing on my beekeeping channel, and that was exciting the other day. I have 2 hives and want to split this year, so we'll be making my queens. Well, making my own queens reduce honey production overall. No, not really. What reduces the honey flow, the honey production, is when you make a split, you're taking away frames or foragers, future foragers from that colony. Here's what I've always said: if you want honey, don't make splits. Keep your hives together. Manage so you don't lose them in swarms. You have more bees in a colony that can gather more honey, make more honey. You don't weaken that colony by numbers. If you want to make more hives, you're not worried about the honey, make splits. So sometimes you might want to make splits this year to have more hives next year for honey gathering, something like that. All right, that's good. All right, let's see. We got 160 people that have signed up to try to win the ultimate class. All right, let me bring that over here. Ultimate, it's growing, 161. Give it a few more minutes. If you want to win my ultimate beekeeping course, 7 online courses, it's an online course. Just enter in the comments, hashtag ULTA. All right, let's go ahead and draw. Oh, somebody barely made it in. Here we go. Wow, look at those names go by. I hate at the end, it kind of slows down. You see your name and you're like, oh, and then it's like, oh, somebody else got, oh, Scott. Scott is the winner. Way to go, Scott. Dang. Good job. All right, Scott, I'll tell you what you need to do to claim your winning. Let me find it. Here it is. Be sure and email us at longlanehoneybees@gmail.com. And that way you will be able to have that sent to you as soon as possible, Scott. Congratulations. Yep. Very good. All right, let's go ahead and give out one more class. We're getting to the top of the hour, so let's give out one more basic beekeeping course. Let me prime up the pump for that again. Yep. And one more basic beekeeping class. Let me select another name for that one. All right, let me do it this way. So we're going to call this one hashtag start. So let's start collecting comments for another basic online beekeeping course. Hashtag start, like you're starting beekeeping. Hashtag start. Bye, Deborah. See you next week in Nevada. That's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to speaking at the Nevada State Bee Conference out there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Be next weekend. Looking forward to it. Yep. Hashtag start, and you can win an online beekeeping course, beginner's course. All right. Anybody have any final questions for today before we wrap it up here in a few minutes? Getting close to the top of the hour. I want to thank my good friend Brian at Castle Hives. He's in the basement managing so many things for me. Thank you, guys. I've been trying to learn how to live stream, and you guys are really patient with me. I appreciate that. Gosh. And I've been trying to get my Nightbot and all my stuff working correctly, and it's like aggravating, but I think we're getting better with it. So thanks a lot, Brian. Appreciate you. Hey, fellas. All right, we got about 140 people that are trying to win the basic online beekeeping course. Hashtag start will give you a chance to win in just a minute. How do you prevent your strong hive from swarming? You know what? we are never going to be able to stop all swarms. Let me tell you this, bees swarm because they want to reproduce. When a colony is strong and healthy, they want to reproduce. They're just like people. You cannot keep them from wanting to reproduce. You can give them space. You can just do everything you want to. They'll wait. You can knock out cells, but you'll miss seeing one. Dang. And they'll wait until you go to work one day and they'll swarm. But there's things you can do. Damari method. There's a whole bunch of swarm prevention methods you can do. Best way for me, I try to make a split before they split. So if I see that they've got some swarm cells cooking, started or whatever, I'm just going to pull mama out, the older queen out with 4 frames of brood, carry her off. And that way the colony says, we can't swarm. We don't have a queen. They have to raise their own queen. And then I can start a whole split from the older queen and let the other hive raise their own queen, or I'll give them a queen cell a head start. But it works out pretty good just to make a split first. How long do you think a queenless hive can go before you get a laying worker? Yeah, I think I've always heard 21 days, but I've heard other people say different days. But usually you don't have the presence of pheromone. So it's the queen mandibular pheromone along with the brood pheromone that keeps the workers keeps them clamped down from being able to lay. And so when the absence of the queen is gone and the absence of the brood pheromone is gone, that's when the workers can begin laying. A lot of people think there's just one laying worker. If I could find her, I'd kill her. Or they think that you can shake all the bees out in the yard and the laying worker can't fly back. That is not right at all. The studies have been done. Laying workers are foragers. They fly. You can shake them in the yard. They're going to fly back and lay. So it's just interesting how we have all these misconceptions about laying workers. But I would say it needs to be queenless and broodless. Around 21 days, you'll start to see laying workers. All right, I think it's good to go ahead and just try to draw. This is for an online basic beekeeping class of ours. Just last minute, just leave a hashtag start, and let's see if you will win. All right, let me bring that up so we can see who the winner might be. Here we go. Let's spin the wheel. Wow, somebody just made it at the end. Might be somebody's already won the other one. Okay, Caps Honeybee, you're the winner. Way to go. You won a basic online beekeeping course. Congratulations. Good job. Just go ahead and send that, send us an email and my staff will make sure you get that online course. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. It's been fun for me to get these courses away. I love helping you guys so much. I wish I could give them all away for free, but boy, every now and again, I do have to pay bills. I do have to make a living. I do have to go to the grocery store once in a while, have a cavity filled, whatever, get a haircut. I need a haircut. So that's great. Well, listen, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here today. I have thoroughly enjoyed all of you being here. And I thank you all so much for watching my YouTube channel. I'm trying to make so many videos that can help you guys. It gives me great joy to feel like I'm making an impact in your life, helping you, and not just in beekeeping, but I feel like I'm encouraging you in life too. That's important. I want to be a source of encouragement, not just in beekeeping, but I want to encourage you to enjoy every day of life. Bees help us enjoy life. They really do. They help us get back to nature, get outdoors, get some sun. We love watching flowers and trees and bees, and it's just a lot of fun. So I'm going to thank you all for being here tonight. And I'm going to try to do this every Thursday night. So mark your calendars. Thanks a lot, guys. Good night.